Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share experiences from the Geological Survey of Canada in geoscience in support of disaster risk reduction. My name is Malaika Almi, and I'm on the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, and particularly the Comox First Nation, on Vancouver Island, Canada. My intention today is to take you on a historical tour of the work of the Geological Survey of Canada, which I will shorten to GSC, in geohazard research, to come to where we are today in working with our National Emergency Management Organization, Public Safety Canada, and other groups. This is the current mission of the GSC, reflecting a lot of the traditional role of geological survey organizations and the mandate related to geohazard and risk research. Although the GSC is 181 years old, the research and monitoring of geological hazards did not come about until well into its second century, as work was initiated and consolidated on geohazards and brought under the GSC umbrella. The focus of this work was initially very academic and focused on processes. While this text is from a fairly recent logic model of our hazard work, it's a good reflection of the type of work that we undertook in geohazard research. Very hazard focused, not straying into impacts on the economy or society. Work through this period and ongoing led to many seminal discoveries about Canada's geohazard environment. This included the recognition of the subduction zone off Canada's west coast and its associated episodic tremor and slip, continuous research to increase the understanding of seismic hazard across the country, national scale hazard assessments, and work in the offshore to support informed infrastructure development. This work was disseminated in the form of publications, maps, and advice. But despite the knowledge developed and many publications produced, there was a non-expert or less technical audience that was not integrating this knowledge into decision-making. At this time, and this was the early 2000s, the GSC was collaborating with the Geological Survey Organizations of Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina to better connect geoscience with emergency management, planning, and education. The objective of the project was to improve the safety of the people of the Andes from the primary geological hazards that they face: earthquakes, landslides, and volcanoes. And I think there are some folks here today who were part of this project as well, and we all learned a lot from each other through the process. I know that Canada is better at articulating this connection, in part thanks to this project. The primary methodology employed in the project to bring together geoscience into a decision-making framework for risk reduction, mostly at the community scale, was something we called community communication. This meant that two-way communication was needed in a decision-making process among three roles. The roles, as you see here, are generators of knowledge, and that can be science or social knowledge, knowledge of place and the people in it. Proponents of solutions, that might be engineers with mitigation solutions, and implementers or financiers of solutions. And a single person or organization can play more than one role. It was recognized that all three of these roles were needed at the table for any transformative risk reduction action to take place. I find that these roles have application to other facets of life as well. The work in South America was based on the ideas of my colleague Murray Journey and his team, who are considering how geohazard knowledge is best situated in decision-making frameworks for risk reduction. The GSC received funding to undertake case studies with municipalities in other regions to test this work. The external funding allowed us to go a little bit outside of our more traditional hazard lane and dabble in risk. This proved important to help inform our research to understand what information is needed to inform risk reduction. This is an example of some of Murray's work, as he considered the domains that need to come together for risk reduction action. As you see, it isn't dissimilar from the slightly more simplified communication framework employed in our international work. The illustration also outlines the needs and tensions of these domains and where they come together. Murray also considered who and how would use different types of information in the risk reduction framework and created typologies to characterize the needs and contributions of different roles. Through this work, there was deep engagement into emergency management and land use planning, and the geohazard knowledge from the GSC was the basis for decision making. This is an example of a plain language document that was targeted at improving the understanding of earthquake risk and its potential consequences in the District of North Vancouver, based on GSC work. There was also an earthquake-ready action plan developed to protect municipal assets and an emergency plan. This work helped us move towards a broader understanding of what is needed and how we can apply it further and at larger, including national scales. This allowed us to build an indicator framework for how we would report on geohazard risk. These indicators also align with the reporting needs of the Sendai framework. Part of the case study work elucidated the need for a mechanism to come together and share information related to disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. Work in the province of British Columbia coalesced academics, financial managers, scientists, policymakers, and practitioners around what might be needed to bring people together consistently and support resilience action. And that's what you see here are areas for shared resources in this space. Ultimately, what we've learned this far in our evolution is that we need to contribute to improving the understanding of geohazard risk, support business cases or cost-benefit analyses for risk reduction measures, create data, knowledge, and tools that provide indicators of risk to support decision-making, and play our part in coordination among emergency management, planning, scientists, and data holders. So for now, we're continuously refining hazard knowledge to support risk assessment and working with all levels of government and practitioners to situate geohazard knowledge in a framework for policy development, decision-making, and risk reduction action. We do this under the auspices of our Public Safety Geoscience program, which undertakes research in many areas, including earthquakes, landslides, volcanoes, tsunamis, seafloor hazards, and coastal hazards. And this is an example of a web portal where we're sharing the results of some recent work based on our relationship with the Global Earthquake Model Foundation. We have created a national profile of earthquake risk at the neighborhood scale, reporting on indicators to support risk reduction action for all of Canada. The work was open source and all data is available. This work was done through a shared proposal with Public Safety Canada, our national emergency management organization, and the results have fed some of their risk and capability assessment processes. This work is ongoing and not without challenges. Some of those challenges include the big resource demands of participative engagement processes, the dynamic and ever-changing hazard and risk environment. We will never finish fully characterizing the hazard, and we need the hazard information to feed the risk assessments. There's not a one-size-fits-all product that answers the questions of all decision or policymakers. We need consistent data across hazards and departments to ensure that we're comparing apples to apples and prioritizing mitigation funding based on risk. We're always challenged in a research organization to match the needs of policy. We work on a geological timescale, and they work in hours. And it remains a challenge to position our work within the policy demands of both disaster risk reduction and climate change, and ensure that we're well recognized for potential contributions to each, and that the shared space between them is clear. We will continue to undertake both the foundational hazard research that in turn moves the dial on our understanding of risk, and I look forward to seeing where the next decades take us in contributing to the Sendai priorities and working with policy and decision makers to reduce risk in Canada. Thank you for your time, and don't hesitate to reach out to me via the email on the screen, and I look forward to the discussion.